I'm very happy to welcome everyone to this webinar together with Atatürk University and Trinity College London. So a warm welcome. Thank you for your time and for joining us this late afternoon, early evening. We're going to start with some quick introductions. So I'll kick off. My name is Alex Thorpe. I'm head of centrally coordinated markets for Trinity College London, and I'll be talking to you a little bit about our English language qualifications, a little bit about Trinity. Now, a quick bit of housekeeping before other introductions. I can see some people are already using the chat. Please use the chat for any comments, general observations, just for everybody to see. If you have any questions for any of us that are presenting today, do please put your questions in the Q&A box, or you can put them in the chat. We'll keep an eye on those. I would ask us not to interrupt the speakers if you are in the meeting, the webinar, but we will answer your questions at the end of the session. And we'll be taking about 1 hour in total, including sessions. So that's a quick bit of housekeeping. Again, my name's Alex. I'm now going to just go around the room and ask everyone to introduce themselves, starting with the Trinity team that are with us. So Kerry, over to you.
Hi, hello everyone, welcome. It's so lovely to see you all popping up here. I'm Kerry, or Kerry Ann, and I work with Alice on our international team, working with amazing countries like Turkey in order to advance your communications, English language, and performing arts skills. And I'll be the person that will probably be in touch with you, or to whom you'll send your questions. I'm going to pop my email in the chat towards the end of the presentation, so you can feel free to reach out to me when you'd like to. And now I'll pass it on to Ben.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lovely to be here. My name is Ben Beaumont, and I oversee Trinity College London's teaching qualifications and also our publishing offer for English language. So later on in this webinar, I'll be talking a little bit more about our teaching portfolio and the qualifications that you can take with Trinity. But for now, I'll pass you over to Cengiz.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you, Ben. Welcome all. I am Cengiz Anakta from Atatürk University, and I'm the coordinator of international language exams at Atatürk University, Erzurum, Turkey. And it is very great pleasure to welcome you all this important webinar. And thank you to Trinity College London for organizing this webinar with Atatürk University. Okay, again, welcome all for this webinar, and thank you for joining.
Great, thank you very much. So I'm going to share my screen. We will make these slides available, and the other presenters feel free to hide in the background. As I say, I'll share my screen, and we will make these available to you at a later date. So I'm going to give a quick overview of what we'll be doing, and this is it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Trinity, if you don't know Trinity yet, and then we'll talk a little bit about our English language assessments. And then we're going to talk, or I'll hand over to Ben, and Ben will talk about the TESOL, Teaching English qualifications. And we'll also talk a little bit at the end around working with Trinity, what that might look like. And again, there will be plenty of time to answer your questions, but do pop them in the chat box as we move along. A little bit about Trinity. I'm not sure if you know much about Trinity College London. We've actually been working in Turkey for many, many years. But in terms of a company globally, we are about just over 150 years old. I have not been there since the beginning, but there are some key elements that I would really want to emphasize about Trinity. And one is really around what we do. Now, we are an educational charity, so we're not for profit, and we really invest in making the qualifications around improving lives. This idea I'm going to put here about positive washback. What we mean by that is very simple, that when we introduce our exams, either at a teaching level or at an English language level, whichever you're looking at, it's all around having a positive impact. So the teaching, the learning, what is the outcome for the students or the candidates, these are positive in terms of their lives. So that positive impact, and that's what we mean by positive washback. All of the qualifications we're going to talk about today are regulated. So they're off-call regulated. And this means they have international recognition. So these are exams that if you have them on your CV, you can use them in terms of gaining access to HEI, so higher educational institutions, or certainly for Cert TESOL or the other TESOL qualifications, internationally recognized if it comes to working around the globe in terms of being an English teacher. Now, I'll mention around the progressive pathways. You'll see there are steps that can be taken throughout these qualifications from lower to higher levels, and a very comprehensive range of qualifications available. So other points we'll mention are all about kind of the added elements, the extracurricular activities, and I've already said about being life enhancing, but you'll hear me repeat that several times. Some figures for you: we're in over 70 countries, over 1 million exams a year. We have over 500 examiners on our examinations panels, and recognized and listed by over 4,000 HEIs. So they're just some numbers for you. Now, one thing I just wanted to talk about, our mission statement. I know it's a bit corny. You think, how do I really want to hear about the mission? Well, I think very much it's why we are here. Certainly why I am still with Trinity. It really is around transforming lives through the power of communication and performance. Now, we'll be talking about English language and TESOL, but you may know we also offer a wide range of exams that relate to the performing arts. So that will be drama, speech and drama, communication skills, and also music, so graded music exams. And we have quite a large music presence in Turkey, so you may have heard of us through that as well. And just going to kick off again some kind of highlights around Trinity. What is it we do and what are the reasons people work with us? Well, I've just made a list here and I'm not going to go through all of these in great detail. Really, this just echoes what I've said in the introduction, that we've been around a long time, really look at improving lives, global recognition, a very prestigious and highly regarded examinations board, but really around the candidate, very much student-centered from our approach in the exams and qualifications that we've developed. So many of these things I'll refer to later, but it's in here for when you look at the slides at a later date. So I'm going to kick off the presentation formally by talking about the English language qualifications, and I'm going to refer to two sets of exams that I'm going to cover quite quickly. Now, one of those is called GESE. GESE is not a farmer in Alabama, as it sounds, but in fact, graded examinations in spoken English. So I will talk about GESE, which is a 2 skills exam, and I'll also talk about the 4 skills exam, integrated skills in English. Now, before we go into detail on those, we have many accreditations, many alliances, partnerships, and that around the globe. Now, I've already mentioned Ofqual, and there are some others here that are our close working partners. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these. The only one I am going to highlight is the ALTE Q mark. Now, this is very important when it comes to a kind of quality stamp. Now, the ALTE Q mark is the Association of Language Testers Europe. They have a very stringent stamp of approval, if you like, where you meet and exceed 17 different criteria, which is all about high quality and delivery of exams. Now, we have the ALTE-Q mark on all of the qualifications that we'll be referring to today. And again, this is something we're very proud of. And I've already mentioned things like the Ofqual regulation, which are very, very important for us. So let's go back to that GESE and ISE that I mentioned. Now, I'm sure you're familiar with the CEFR, the Common European Framework for the Reference of Languages. And these are our qualifications just quickly mapped against the CEFR. So you'll see that ISE and GESE go from a beginner level. So this is A1 or pre-A1 for absolute beginner, all the way through the levels of the CEFR up to C2. So that proficiency or high proficiency level. A couple of things to mention on this, that ISE is in fact the first exam that was ever mapped from the CEFR. So it wasn't added on later. It wasn't something that was crowbarred in. So the way ISE was constructed really was looking at the sub-skill sets and the skills that sit within the different major skills within the CFR and built from that. So it really is constructed to align very accurately with the levels of the CEFR. Now, ISE, we'll be talking about ISE Digital, is a fully adaptive test. So this is one test you take which adapts as you take it. And this is an exam, therefore you go in at one level, same exam, entry point, if you like, for all exam takers. It will adapt as you go through, and then you'll get your overarching certificate at the end. But it's purely modular, and I'll talk about that in more detail in a moment. GESE is not an adaptive test, it's a level test. So what you'll see with GESE is that there are discrete levels. So you can take a pre-A1 level, GESE 1, and there are grades that go all the way up to grade 12. So the main difference between ISE and GESE here is that ISE, there is one level when you pay for the exam and take the exam. That's one exam, if you like, whereas GESE, you have the different levels that you would choose before you take the exam. So let's focus in on each of these in a moment. But before, I just want to talk a little bit about the academic construct. Now, I might ask the question, why would you learn a language? Why would you learn to, I don't know, speak or write in any other language? And I don't know, feel free to throw anything in the chat box if you'd like. But what's the reason? We don't just do it to get that. And I was just speaking before the webinar actually about ticking a box, this idea of, you know, jumping through a hoop. I would say we really do learn a language so that we can communicate. And now that may sound obvious. So of course I learn a language to communicate, but it's amazing how many people globally do learn a language, but they don't learn a language that enables them to communicate effectively. And what do I mean by that? Well, the construct that sits behind all Trinity exams, and certainly behind GESE and ISE, is communicative competence. And the idea of communicative competence, and it's a well-established academic framework, which has many iterations actually. So it goes back to people like Beckman and Parman, or prior to that it was Canale and Swain, where we were looking at the key elements to what are the kind of skills you need to be able to communicate effectively. Now, we know you need linguistic, sociolinguistic, discoursal, and strategic competence. Now, don't worry, this isn't turning into a long lecture, but you are probably already familiar with what these are, and I'll just elaborate on them. But what we have is this idea that if you only learn a language or certain aspects of a language, and you only learn one area or other of the different competencies, you won't necessarily be able to communicate effectively. Let's quickly go through them. Linguistic competence, very clearly, this is the kind of building blocks to a language. So if you like, grammar, lexical ability, phonology, and this will be all the kind of building blocks of the language, which is a far more traditional approach, if you like, but certainly grammar would sit in here, and lexical knowledge. Now, discourse is slightly different. Discourse is when we start putting the pieces together. So linguistic competence are often, you know, this is the present perfect or present perfect continuous. Here is a lexical item, but discourse is what happens when we start using it in context, so we begin to build, so sentences, and this is far more complex in spoken discourse than it is in written. So we have the building blocks, we have discourse, but very often left behind are the sociolinguistic and strategic competencies. And again, something that we really need to focus on when it comes to effective communication. Now, if we look at sociolinguistic competence, well, what's that? In a way, it's making sure what I'm saying is understandable by the person I'm saying it to. I say saying, I might be writing, or whatever the communication mode. But sociolinguistic competence is about making sure the language I use is accessible. So this is around appropriacy, it's around appropriate level. We might talk about the lingua franca here, so English used as a global language, but it's really making sure that I'm able to make language accessible to the person that I'm interlocuting or working with. Now, we have sociolinguistic competence. That's also about appropriacy, by the way, and cultural appropriacy, which we know can be quite important. And the other one, the last but not least by any measure, is strategic competence. Now, strategic competence, again, a lot of people misunderstand this. What's this? It really is around, yes, achieving your strategic goal with communication, but really for me, this is around spontaneity. It's around being able to work with language in an unpredictable environment. Now, communication usually is co-constructed. It's not just me presenting to you now. What I'm doing now is really unnatural and a bit weird and probably quite boring for most people because you're not involved. You're just listening to me. Blah, blah, blah. But if we look at a communicative environment, that co-construction, and what I mean is one person contributes, the second person will then relate to that, and then we'll feed, and you feed each other in that communicative cycle. And it may be 3, 4, 5 people, and it may be 1, 2, 3 languages. But anyway, strategic competencies are all the skills you need to work in real time. So that spontaneity, adjusting, being able to make sure you're understood, so on and so forth. Now, I've given that at a very high level. I just wanted to mention this because all of the exams we're going to talk about, so GESE, ISE, really are based on communicative competence, and the way they are assessed when you look at the rating scales and what we've done, they are not grammar only exams. They're not lexical only exams. what you see is that real mix of these skill sets and sub-skills, because that is what we need. We know you have to have those elements to be able to communicate effectively. So they're all in there. So that's me done with that bit. I'm going to go through a little bit about the exams themselves. So Jesse, I've already mentioned, this is a 2 skills exam. So speaking and listening, I've mentioned already 12 discrete levels that are mapped to the CFR. The thing I haven't mentioned really is how it works. And it's a one-to-one conversation with an examiner with that level or at that level. And it's very much student-centered. So you choose a topic, what you're speaking about. And again, this is something that echoes into ISE as well. But it's very much around you and what you are interested in. And the level you have kind of agency over the language is the way we would describe it. Very much friendly. It's about the examiner eliciting and working with you to get the language and to make sure you can do what is described at that level of the CFR. Now, in terms of the practical steps, these are the different levels. So you'll see from the left of your screen is grade 1. This goes all the way up to grade 12. And you'll notice there are different tasks within the different levels. So you have the 5 tasks at the advanced, the higher levels, only the 1 task at the very lower levels, so grade 1 to 3. I'm not going to go through these in great detail at all, but you'll see, as you'd expect, as we go higher in the CFR, you get the more complex tasks. The one thing I will flag, as you'll see from grade 7, which is B2, there is a topic discussion and an interactive task. Now, the interactive task, going back to what I was saying previously, really looks at those strategic competencies. What happens here, you're given an unpredictable kind of scenario and you take control of the conversation. You're then communicating and moving the conversation along. And again, this is quite unique to Jesse, where you see this kind of proper interaction being assessed within the construct of the exam. So you'll see it's 25 minutes at the higher levels. It's very quick, 5 to 7 minutes at the lower levels. And again, this can be adapted for all kind of applications. So you could use this in a professional working environment. For example, we are using this in the UAE with teachers. So we are using Jesse for teachers where they talk about their teaching role and they're using this at an advanced level to, again, enable their kind of career development. So that's a quick overview of Jesse. I'm not going to go into much detail here. I'll send through links later where you can read as much as you can. Just some of the things that I've echoed before: fully regulated, Ofqual regulated, so it's internationally recognized, and really lots around that real tasks, real life tasks, language for life, if you like. So I'm going to move on and talk a little bit about, I'm just going to jump over to ISE Digital. Now, ISE is like the big brother, if you like, of Jesse. So ISE is a 4 skills exam. Now, it's a digital exam, fully digital. So this isn't one-to-one, face-to-face. This is taken on a computer. But everything I've said previously about how we've built the exam on communicative competence stands. This is 4 skills. So if you're looking at an exam that is for university entrance, particularly entering a particular course through an admissions process, you would need the ISE, not Jesse. So you have the reading and writing. And you'll see here some of the headlines around ISE Digital. It really is real life tasks based on what you would be expected to do in an academic environment. Hugely flexible. It's on demand. As I've mentioned, 4 separate modules. If anyone fails one module, you just retake the one module. You don't need to retake the whole exam. Very quick turnaround within 2 weeks of the date of exam, digital certificate and badging. But key to all of this is very personalized. So still you have that topic presentation, this idea you're talking about yourself, language that's important to you, language you own. Now, some of the key points then around the modules, this is how long they are. So 14 minutes for speaking, 20 for the listening, 20 for reading, and 40 for writing. So this really shows you the kind of setup and practical side of the exam. I'm going to quickly go through the tasks of each of these modules, and I'm going to gloss over this very quickly because if you're interested in this, you'll be able to go back and look at the slides or look online. But you'll see the speaking module is really around responding. This is digital, so you're working with an avatar on a computer. You respond to questions about yourself. You then deliver a prepared topic, exactly the same as Jesse. There's an interactive task where there's a scenario and things change in a way you may not predict, and you'll be relating to that scenario. And again, coming in those strategic competencies. And there's also this idea of listening to a talk and summarizing. So there are other elements when we look at the CEFR and yeah, other scores, if you like, which again, I'll talk about in a moment, around what are really key skills that we need in this kind of current age, in this idea of moderating conversation, being able to report to others and so on. So there's that summary of another talk. So that's a speaking module, 40 minutes. This is still graded. It's marked by a real examiner. So whilst you interact with an avatar, it's all on a computer, as I mentioned, but it is actually graded by the same examiners that you would have in the face-to-face exams for GESE. Listening module, the kind of thing you'd expect to have is then task 1, listening to a description of a person, then reporting back on it. There's a conversation, you then listen to a discussion, again, reporting back on that discourse, and then a talk. Very much these are aligned to working within the academic environment. So the kind of thing you'd be expecting to experience in a seminar or in a lecture, and then delivering information from those listenings. So they're 20 minutes. Then we have, oh, by the way, as I mentioned, this is fully adaptive. So depending on how you perform as you move through, you will get different questions or different texts, different tasks, depending on the kind of performance of the prior task. Reading, also 20 minutes. So you have a visual text, single text, and paired text. So again, very typical, an infographic. You'll be taking knowledge from an infographic. Single text, as you'd expect. Paired text, where you'll be synthesizing and reading across multiple texts. So again, really glossing this, but I'll give you the links so you can look at this in more detail after. And last but not least, 40 minutes. The longest of the modules is the writing module. You have an online communication. So this will be the kind of genre of writing you'd be expected to do online. So you mentioned here feedback forms, emails, so on and so forth, blogs. And then we have writing from sources. So this is extrapolating information from across multiple texts into a synthesized, constructed writing of your own. So that's a quick overview of the ISE digital exam. And I think going back to this slide, just some key things to highlight then, that it's high stakes, it's Ofqual regulated, so this can be used for university admissions and for a broad range of kind of applications worldwide once you have it on your CV. Highly flexible, on demand, you can book this and then have it the exam when you want. Very quick turnaround. Obviously, we haven't mentioned any of the commercials here, but what you will find is the ISE Digital is a lot cheaper than other high stakes exams that are in that kind of area, if you like. So I just will flag that very, very quickly. There's a lot of teacher support and a lot of candidate support. We have different publications that will be available with ISED. There's a whole free course that's available for teachers that use GESE online. So a real broad selection of support materials, much of which is free. There are, of course, then the paid course books that will be coming. There are also paid resource questions, so on and so forth, to prepare candidates for these exams. So I've spoken quite quickly and at speed. Forgive me, I've gone on a lot about GESE, graded examinations in spoken English, 2 skills exam, 12 levels. I've spoken about ISE Digital, 4 skills, high stakes exam, which is adaptive, which will be available. So that's a very quick whistle-stop overview. And if you have any questions, do please put them in the chat, as we've mentioned, or the Q&A. As well as these English language exams, we do, of course, offer TESOL qualifications. And this is the point at which I'm going to hand over to Ben, so Dr. Ben Beaumont, who will talk to you a little bit about the TESOL qualification. So over to you, Ben.
Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you for that great overview of the GESE and ISE qualifications. And I see in the chat already there are questions about how we have English improvement plans, workshop courses. And of course, a lot of what we do at Trinity as an international charity is helping develop teachers' skills. And of course, we have when it comes to learner workshops or learner courses, there are lots of learner resources that we have and course books, as Alex says. But for teachers, we have workshops, we have an annual conference, but also we have our teaching qualifications themselves. So if we move on to the next slide, Alex, if you can move on to that one, we should be able to see our TESOL qualifications. So our TESOL qualifications start at level 5 on the Ofqual regulated framework. So the Ofqual framework is an internationally matched framework which helps us understand the different levels of qualifications. But our essential TESOL qualification is the certificate in TESOL, the Cert TESOL. It started back in 1980, so we're 45 years in with this qualification. It's been updated and revised over the years. But this is at level 5, which equates to a second-year undergraduate teaching qualification. And we have qualifications which go through all the way, if we go to through young learner teaching qualifications and diplomas in teaching as well. And if we just scroll through a bit more, Alex will see that if you successful candidates for the qualification gain a certificate. I think the slides may have frozen slightly. I don't, Alex, if you're able to make the slides be forward. There we go, brilliant. So the qualification there, and then we talk about our TESOL courses around the globe. So if we think about our TESOL qualifications or our TESOL courses, so we've got over 100 TESOL centres globally with over 3,000 TESOL candidates annually being assessed from Montevideo in Uruguay, Sydney in Australia, Tokyo in Japan, all over. We've got a number of teachers taking either the Cert TESOL, the TILEC, our DIP TESOL qualifications, and this global network enables a global recognition, and part of this recognition is also based on the quality of the qualifications. And that every single course, every single TESOL qualification that run somewhere in a place around the world is externally moderated and reviewed by Trinity, and every single candidate is externally assessed as well. So in this way, we're able to ensure a high quality of candidate. Anyone who has a Trinity teaching qualification, we can guarantee has a good level of teaching skill. And in addition to the qualification itself, as I mentioned, there's free support courses and teaching materials. In the bottom right of the slide, you'll see we've got materials to help teachers with their development for developing listening, speaking, reading, and writing skills. We also have free online resources as well. And as you saw from the slide just before, there's a clear qualification pathway. Qualification pathway that leads from an initial teaching qualification, essential teaching skills, through to young learner, specialist, and advanced TESOL development and TESOL qualifications. So the DIP TESOL at level 7 is a master's level qualification. So we really want to help teachers develop their communication skills, their teaching skills, as they progress through Trinity's teaching journey. So let's talk a little bit more about the qualifications in detail. So we've got quite a few qualifications, but I'll focus mostly on the Cert TESOL, which is our largest qualification, our most popular qualification globally. This is designed for those who have little teaching experience or no teaching experience, or those who have a little teaching experience but want a qualification, an initial qualification, an internationally recognized qualification in teaching. The qualification itself is 5 assessed units, and this includes 6 hours of assessed teaching. What's really important when it comes to our teaching qualifications is that the teachers are assessed teaching real learners. And it links into what Alex was saying earlier about the communicative nature of Trinity's qualifications, that it's not just about having an academic knowledge. It's not just about being able to write or read. It's about being able to communicate. And for learners, this means communicating in English. But for teachers, this means communicating with their learners, being able to help their learners, being able to diagnose their learners' difficulties and offer targeted support to help them. So as well as those 5 units of which include the 6 hours of assessed teaching, we're able to look at language analysis. We look at language analysis, building language analysis skills and language development skills across the 4 skills and the systems of English, the grammar, lexis, phonology, and discourse that Alex mentioned earlier. We also ensure that candidates or course participants are able to diagnose their learner skills, their learners' needs, and also empathize with them by looking at what it's like to learn a language from scratch. And we put our course participants in the role of the learner by requiring them to learn several hours of a new language, a language they've never learned before or never don't know anything about. By doing this, we're able to help put the prospective teachers, these new teachers, in the shoes of the learners. We put them on the other side of the classroom. We help them understand what it is to be a learner with very little language skills. And this is something our course participants really seem to appreciate. Helping understand what it is that's necessary to learn a language and what's necessary to communicate effectively. And as well as those features for the course participants, for the centres that run our courses, we have plenty of support on our dedicated resource site. And we've got pre and post-course development materials, which include interactive resources through our free VLE site. And you can access some of that certainly on the Trinity website as well. And the link is at the bottom of the page. And as I mentioned earlier, this is really the first step on a teacher's qualification pathway from becoming a new teacher to becoming an expert teacher. And part of that role of becoming an expert teacher is indeed specializing in different areas. So while the Cert TESOL is a general essential teaching qualification, our next qualification we'll look at is the TILEC qualification, the Teaching Young Learners Extension course. This is, as it says, an extension course of the Cert TESOL. For those that want to do this qualification, they should have either an initial teaching qualification, like the Cert TESOL, the CELTA, or another initial teaching qualification, or they should have substantial teaching experience with young learners. And this is necessary to help teachers reflect on how to adapt their teaching to ensure they're doing the best for their learners. So much like the Cert TESOL with its 6 hours of assessed teaching, the TILEC has 4 hours of assessed teaching, but there's also a 5th diagnostic assessment. The study options are online, blended, part-time, and like with the Cert TESOL, we ensure there is a full support package to help centres run the qualification, but also help those teachers who are on the course get that qualification, develop the skills necessary to communicate and effectively teach young learners. Now, that young learner teaching, of course, may be in person, but it may be that these days teaching is done much more often online, much more like this webinar. In the past, we may have gone to a presentation, a live presentation. Well, our next qualification looks at our certificate in online teaching and teaching English online. So we're teaching English online. This is a fully asynchronous online course and qualification run by Trinity College London. And it features some very great things about how to teach effectively online. Now, what we know about pedagogy and what we know about teaching is there are lots of things which work well across in-person teaching and online teaching. But we also know that teaching online requires certain techniques, certain tricks, certain things that we can only do online and maybe can't do in person, just as there are in-person techniques we can't do online. So this course and qualification helps teachers understand the technical knowledge they need to effectively work on the qualification or to teach online. And it develops the 4 skills, the 4 key teaching skills, 4 communication skills of listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and looks at techniques which can support learners with those particular skills. If you want, you can do the whole course. It's as I say, an asynchronous online course. Of course, you can access at your own time, and you can do the whole course, or you can just sign up for a single unit or a module, choosing a CPD package which meets your needs. Again, it's this point about trying to give teachers the specific skills necessary to support their learners and develop their communication skills. And while teaching online is one specialist area, we also have a more general specialist qualification at level 6, which is a final year undergraduate level qualification, the certificate for practicing teachers. This is based on written assignments and uses resource management and resource evaluation as a vehicle for assessment. Now, what we know about looking at teaching is that teachers always use a resource. They go into a classroom with some kind of resource, be that an online class or an in-person class, be that a class for children or a class for adults, a university class or an English language learning class. There's always some kind of resource. So this qualification uses that resource as a vehicle for CPD, and then helps teachers understand how to evaluate that resource in relation to their local context, adapt the resource, create new resources, and then evaluate on the use of resources. And much like Trinity's other qualifications, there is a good amount of support both for centres and course participants to make sure they get the most from these teaching qualifications. The final qualification I'll talk about, I mentioned this earlier, it's our gold standard master's level teaching qualification, our diploma in teaching English to speakers of other languages, the TESOL. So in this qualification, we have, again, 5 hours of assessed teaching practice to focus on the higher skills, the kind of more advanced skills of teaching and effective teaching learners well, helping maximize the learning that happens in a classroom environment. And as with the other qualifications, this course can be studied online or in person or a blended approach. Learning and the assessed learning of teaching can be done with your own learners or with learners in the target centre where you might study the qualification. And as with the other qualifications, there's a support for centres and course participants as well. And because it's a master's level qualification, we're able to support recognition of prior learning, that is, say, credits for a master's qualification. So if you do the TESOL is 60 credits at level 7. There's in UK credits, which is about a third of a master's qualification, 180 credits, UK credits. I think in Turkey it's 360 credits for a master's, and the TESOL would be 120 of that. That's the great thing about having a regulated qualification, a qualification which is linked to an international regulated framework that we're able to support credit recognition. So if we then go back to our final slide, we just put these qualifications in context once more. So we can see that we start with a TESOL, which is our essential teaching qualification, and we progress. There are different options that teachers can take. Young learners, specialist online teaching, or other specialist professional development courses. And teachers don't need to do these in order. They don't need to do all of them. They just need to do the courses and qualifications which they need to support their learning, and most importantly, to support their teachers, their learners, in the attainment and achievement of their English language skills. So it's a great career option. And if those of you who are interested in taking teaching qualifications, I hope you'll certainly consider these. But Alex, thank you very much for allowing me the time to talk about these qualifications. And I see a couple of questions have come up, and thank you for those who have responded to those already. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ben. I'm going to hand over to Kerry. We're just going to talk a little bit about working with Trinity before we move on to any questions and a broader discussion. But Atatürk University is now becoming a provider of both TESOL and of the English language qualifications. So I'm aware many people on this webinar may already be within the university, but I'm just going to hand over to Kerry, who's going to talk a little bit about working with Trinity. Whether you're going to work with us offering those English language exams or becoming a validated course provider for TESOL, just to give a quick overview of how that works.
Thanks, Alex. And thank you, Ben, as well, for the great presentation so far. Thank you, everyone, on the call. If you move to the next slide. So as Alex mentioned, there are 2 ways in which you can collaborate with Trinity and become part of our global network of partners. One is our registered exam centers, which are called RECs for short. And those are for any institution, organization, or perhaps somebody who has a teaching practice who wants to deliver our GESE, as we talked about on this presentation, this webinar, or our ISC digital as well. You can submit an application to become our registered exam center. It takes about 4 weeks or so. I'll probably be the one looking over it to see whether or not you meet all the criteria and communicating with you. And then once you have become been set up as one, we'll provide you with the relevant support and training that you'll need to be able to use our internal systems to be a really effective registered exam center. And then you can then use these tools to book your exams with Trinity. As I mentioned, it's you joining part of a larger global community, and there's lots of resources to support you. And yeah, we'll be able to help you with that. Alex, let me know if I've missed out on anything. No. And then the validated course providers, what you need to have that status and be an organization that can deliver on our teaching qualifications that Ben went through. So our TESOL, for those, you really need to make sure that your teaching staff and have the relevant background and qualifications. So you'll have to make sure you reach certain validation requirements, which of course we will walk you through what those are. You'll submit an expression of interest, and then you'll also have to look at submitting a full course proposal on what you're going to deliver to your students to help them on their journey to getting whatever teacher qualification there might be. And then again, once you've gone through this whole process and meeting our requirements, we will then confirm that you are a validated course provider, and we'll provide you with support and training that you need to do that. So if there's any questions about that, let me know. I'm going to put my email in the chat as well, just so you can keep that for your information if you have anything else to follow up with. But question time.
Great. And just to reiterate, we're already a long way down that path. So again, with Atatürk, so looking at the qualifications only, then we already are working together to offer these exams within Turkey, which is really exciting stuff. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour of Trinity English Language. We could do hours on any one of these. So forgive us if that was at speed, but hopefully you got a quick overview. So really happy now to answer any questions that have come through. And I noticed one already about guided learning hours and total qualification time. So I'm going to ask Ben if you would address that around what's the difference between GLH, TQT, etc. Maybe you could give a quick overview of how those are calibrated.
Absolutely. So I popped a little note in the chat there, but it's a very good question. So GLH stands for Guided Learning Hours, and guided learning hours is the part of being of running regulated qualifications, and part of understanding how many credits a certain course or qualification may be worth is we have to understand how many hours are needed to study a qualification at a particular level. Now, in the UK, generally, it's a situation where 10 to 15 hours of study roughly equates to 1 credit. Within the European Union, it's around 20 to 30 hours, depending on the course and qualification. So we're starting to think about, well, how many hours is that? So let's say 10 hours is 1 credit at a certain level. Well, that's your, what is that time? What are those hours? Well, there's a time it takes when you go into a session. Say when you're at university and you're in a lecture, for example, you have a 1-hour lecture, that's 1 hour. You have a tutorial, that's 1 hour. So that combination of lectures, tutorials, discussions, that combination we call our guided learning hours. And so the CERT TESOL, for example, has a minimum 130 guided learning hours. That means we have 130 hours of seminars, assessments, and lectures, etc. Then we have the total qualification time, because we realize that actually taking a qualification isn't just about attending lectures. You have to do personal study as well. So what Ofqual, the UK government ombudsman for qualifications, makes us do is identify roughly what the minimum number of hours extra study time on top of attending lectures, seminars, etc. on top of that is in order to pass a qualification. So we know with the CERT TESOL there's at least 130 hours of contact time. It requires at least a further 70 hours minimum of study time. So we get the 130 hours GLH plus 70 study time gives us 200 hours total qualification time. And if we equate that just as an example to the DIP TESOL, the DIP TESOL has 600 hours of total qualification time, which equates to 600 divided by 10 gives us 60 credits at level 7. And a master's degree is generally about 3 times that, so about 1,800 hours of total study. For a master's qualification, we see the DIP TESOL is 600 hours of total study, and that's how we start to get a better understanding about credit weighting and how we can compare credits. So that GLH and TQT is really about weighting for credits, but also to help us understand actually how long should a course be, and it gives us a rough idea about what the extra study time is that we'll need in order to complete that qualification. Alex, I hope that wasn't too wordy a response.
No, absolutely, and very clear about TQT and GLH. Thank you. It says about I've also Oscar has asked about DIP TESOL 600 hours is how many weeks or months?
That's a very good question. So it depends on the course provider where you study. So the minimum period of registration for the DIP TESOL is 3 years. Now, some people complete the course within 6 months. They tend to do it part-time, and the minimum part-time duration is about 6 months. If we think about how long a master's degree is, you think, well, a master's degree, if you do it part-time, maybe 2 to 3 years. And we're looking at maybe a third of that. So you could do it in, let's say, about a year, perhaps. Most people tend to do it in about 12 months, but it depends on the course where you enroll, or the institution at which you enroll, as to whether or not they have a 1-year course or a 2-year course or a 3-year course. But generally, it's done, I'd say, between 1 and 2 years part-time.
Great, thank you very much, Ben. And Cengiz, maybe you could, I don't know if we're in a position to say yet, but if you were to run the DIP TESOL, what your program offer would be, but maybe we'll talk about that next time.
So, yeah. You know that we have started the process. We have the 2 teams now working together. One of the team is just working with the registered exam center. This guy is the man because I'm focused on exam. We have another group of my friends, staff there are trying to focus on the work as a course provider. But this tide is a bit slow now. The reason is that the second semester of the university have just started. And you know that at the beginning of everything, we have lots of paperwork and the teachers are so busy that. And then just trying to start the second semester of the university. And then I will just contact with you and to go on the process. But the regional exam center, as you know that we are currently delivering your trial exams at our exam center now. On Tuesday, we had 20 candidates took the exam. Tomorrow we will have 50 or 60, and Friday we have 20, and Saturday we have, I think, that 50 or more. Actually, we are now delivering your trial exams, both to see your exam and to see whether our equipment and test center is ready to do it. And I can say that in a short time, if you have, we will finish the process, and Atatürk University will be both recognized exam center and hopefully the course provider in Turkey. I hope so.
Yeah, and that, you know, we're confident everything looks good to plow ahead. So and again, so we'll look forward for updates there when these courses will become available.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I'm just going to open to the floor once more. So any other questions pertaining to either the English language exams or the TESOL courses and assessments or anything else? And I've just noticed Cengiz and we're both drinking from the same glass. I mean, how did that happen? We're actually in the same room.
Really,
We're next to each other. We're not actually many miles away. So is Atatürk University the only official coordinator in Turkey? So at the moment, in fact, Ben, for TESOL, I'll let you answer that, and then I will answer for English language.
I think I think we only have maybe one other university in Ankara, I think, running this CERT TESOL. So Ataturk would be one of the first to collaborate with us, but it would certainly be the largest. I think it would also be the most prestigious university as well. So I certainly know that Trinity is very keen to collaborate with Ataturk University for its size, its prestige, and of course the quality of the teachers and learning staff and the students there. So I think it would be a great place to take the TESOL, certainly.
Yes, thank you, Ben.
And I think what we've discussed previously as well was the idea that through Ataturk we have a potential network of centres, again, working together, Cengiz, this idea this could become a kind of hub agreement where there could be potentially multiple centres throughout Turkey. So
yes, certainly.
Yes,
Sure.
that would be based through this particular relationship. So what we would expect to see is what we would call a relationship agreement, which would be a kind of broader agreement with a wider range of centres countrywide. So we do have other centres I've already mentioned in terms of music and drama. So music, we have quite a few chain schools particularly that offer our examinations. We do have other centres that offer English language, but again, this has been far smaller scale than it used to be. It used to be very big, but then there was various issues around insurance and around examiners getting in. You know, we had some quite big issues working with Turkey, sadly, because of the terrorist activity many years ago. Then COVID, you know, so we went through some difficult times, and I'm delighted to say, you know, these are behind us. We really see a new horizon, and you know, I'm really excited to be working again in Turkey, and we're really looking forward to this picking up speed and working with you all.
Okay. I think that this will be the first step. Now that for a long time, the teachers or the candidates didn't have a chance to hear something about Trinity, but now this will be the chance for all of them. Now, Trinity is on the stage again in Turkey and with Atatürk University, and we will try to do our best.
No, that's great to hear, and we'll do our best to support that.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So this is nice. We rarely have any spare time, so we've reached the top of the hour at great speed. But any other questions before I invite any closing comments? Or maybe, Cengiz, you may have some questions for us around the courses or anything practical.
Not actually right now. Now, as I said that we are just working on to start the new semester, and if maybe the next week our team will directly contact with you to continue the process, and I will follow the exam part, and my friend staff will follow the course provider. I think in a short time we will manage and announce it to Turkey that now Atatürk University is both a course provider and an exam center and works with Trinity College London here. Yeah.
Perfect. Great. Well, I'm going to quickly go around the room for a closing comment. So, Kerry, Anne, may I start with you?
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for attending. Again, I put my email in the chat. I will be following up with an email after this as well with my details. So don't worry about that. Yeah, and I'm here for your contact. So thank you.
Thank you, Kerry. Ben.
Just thank everyone for coming today, and I hope you've enjoyed the information we've shared, and that I hope that if you are interested in teaching, you engage in a teaching qualification. Teaching is a wonderful job and really, really enjoyable, and I'm sure Cengiz and Ataturk University are a great place for doing that kind of thing.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Ben. So, Cengiz, anything to close?
Thank you. Thank you for all. For your nice information, valuable information that you give to our participants and me. And thank you for all the participants being here after a long, a very tired working hour at 8 o'clock now. It's evening in Turkey. Most of our friends, I'm sure that the participants participated here after a long teaching hours and they're so tired. But thank you for all of them being here.
Yeah, and I'll close just by echoing that. Thanks so much. We appreciate your time. And yes, we're all going to be tired after a long working day. I can see someone, Oscar, you're still in your car. Oh, I'm sorry. All right. Well, listen, lovely to have virtually had everyone in the room. We will share this recording. We'll share the slides, and you can get onto the website at any time, but you'll find us easy to reach. Really looking forward to working with you all. Again, yeah, Cengiz, thank you for bringing this together. Have a wonderful evening, everyone. We'll stay in touch. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.